Okay, I think we're ready to get things started. Welcome to Cycling the Empire State Trail. I'm Michaela. I'm the communications manager at PTNY. And this is our tours team that will be meeting later on in the webinar. Dylan, Erica, Tara, and Rob are all personally interested in cycling and super involved in the community, and they have a lot of great info to share with you about the trail and about PTNY's fully supported tours as well. So now I'm going to throw things to our first presenter, Dylan.
Thanks, Michaela, and thank you all for coming. We're excited to share this webinar on behalf of Parks and Trails New York. And just wanted to share some background for those of you who aren't familiar with us. PTNY, we're an independent statewide nonprofit organization. We're not a state agency. We are not the Parks Department. We are not government employees. What we are is a fierce advocate for our public lands. In 2025, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary of our founding. And in that time, we've worked tirelessly to protect our state parks from threatened funding cuts. We've worked to promote the idea of an interconnected network of greenway trails that link parks, historic sites, and communities. And we've supported numerous groups around the state, ranging from those friends groups who help steward our public lands to the countless new local advocates who are working to make their trails and their trailside communities more welcoming for folks like you who are interested in riding your bike along those trails. So one of the things we're known for is that ongoing promotion of the Empire State Trail through our multi-day bike tours and through the various trip planning resources. And those are what we're going to talk about on this webinar today. What is the Empire State Trail? How can you plan a trip on it? And what are these multi-day bike tours that PTNY hosts? What do they include? Why do we think you should sign up and join us this summer? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Erica, who's going to talk about, Erica, what is the Empire State Trail?
Right. So the Empire State Trail officially opened up in 2020. It is kind of a collection of different trails that span 750 miles across the state, from Albany to Buffalo along the Erie Canal and New York City to the Canadian border. So basically, this kind of came to be through a bunch of different projects seeking to connect those. And as you can see on the map, it's a lot of different, it goes through a lot of different communities. And it's not managed by one single entity. It's that collection of trails and routes that bring you 750 miles across the state. So I'm going to take you through each leg of the trail, starting with the Champlain Valley. I'm going to start with this one because it's kind of the least complete trail-wise. You'll see 86% of it is on road right now, but there are some really nice trail sections, especially further south along the old Champlain Canalway Trail. And it goes through some really charming trail towns. So if you're going this way, you'll see on the map on the next slide, you can take it all the way to the Canadian border. And then from there, it's just 60 more miles to Montreal. So that's a really popular route option that we see a lot of people doing, is coming down that road route. Sometimes some people go into Vermont. You can do that as well, and then reconnect in Whitehall and take the trail back down to Albany or New York City as far as you're going. I will note that this is a lot of on-road riding, and it's going through the Adirondacks, so it's going to be hilly. So peak fitness level required. Onto the Erie Canalway Trail. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because it's one of the oldest sections of the Empire State Trail. It runs 360 miles between Buffalo and Albany, and as you can see, is almost entirely trail. And those on-road sections are mostly rolling back roads that most people feel comfortable with. So you can see it's the trail sections are about evenly paved in stone dust. So you get a variety of surface types. Most of the stone dust is on the western half of the trail, and most of the paved is on the eastern, although it's interspersed. And this is a great section of trail for those newer to cycle touring and those experienced as well. It's mostly flat. There are a lot of small towns along the way. We support the communities along it, and like Dylan said, are constantly working with them to improve that trail experience. So this, is a great way to dip your toe into bike touring. And this year is especially exciting because it's the 200th anniversary, the bicentennial of the completion of the Erie Canal. So if you've ever needed another reason to do it, this should be your year. Then that last section of trail is the Hudson River Valley Greenway section, another 200 miles that goes between Albany and New York City. And you'll see that this is also mostly trail, some on road, and most of that trail runs along old rail lines. So you're going to get a totally different experience than riding along the canal. You're going to be riding on old rail trails, going through forests, going through farms, and hitting some of those iconic Hudson Valley communities like Kingston and Hudson, and moving closer to the city. And you'll see that there's a chunk of on-road riding kind of between Hudson and Kingston, that yellow on the map there. And that's mostly rolling hills. So that will be kind of the time when you might get a little bit more elevation change. But other than that, the rest of the route is rail trails, which, were kind of limited in the grade that they were allowed to be for the railroads. So it's going to be fairly flat riding as well. So that kind of gives you an overview of what the Empire State Trail is. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how you would go about planning a trip on it. So PTNY, we publish 2 cycling guidebooks, Cycling the Erie Canal and Cycling the Hudson Valley. If you can see Dylan, he's holding them up right now. And these, they're about a half a page size. So they're really easy to pack with you. They have detailed full color maps of the trail route. They have lots of, in addition to the maps, they have lots of tips for route planning and training and things like that. And the 2 editions that are up on our website that are available now are the most up-to-date guidebooks out there. So you don't have to worry about buying it and then be like, oh, they just published a new one. These are the ones to get. But of course, they're not going to have every single up-to-date listing or up-to-date trail routes. So we also have, or there are also interactive online trip planning resources. We have the Empire State Trail map that's created and managed by New York State Parks. And this is a great online resource, will help with routing, that on the ground, day-to-day planning. And they also have a free paper map available. If you go to their website, you can request that. And that's more just for, starting to think about the trip, planning out ideas, but it's not going to help with navigation. So that the interactive map or our guidebooks are what you're going to need for that routing day-to-day information. And I'll also call out the cycletheeriecanal.com website that Parks and Trails New York manages, which has even more detailed information about just that section from Buffalo to Albany. And it has the interactive map on it, as well as a bunch of trip planning resource pages like transportation tips, closures and detours, businesses, bike shops, trail towns. So really that one-stop shop for everything you need to plan a trip on the Erie Canalway Trail. And I'll also share that we're working on updating our interactive map. So stay tuned for that. We're really excited to launch that sometime this year. And one other thing I'll call out really quick is we have a Facebook group called Cycling the Erie Canal, which is a great community for crowdsourcing information or asking questions to the over 13,000 people that are in the group that have either ridden or are planning their trip on the canal. Okay, so what about accommodations? Where are you going to stay? So one option is camping. We maintain a map of all the camp spots along the Erie Canal and or along the entire Empire State Trail. And the pros of this are it's obviously cheaper, a little bit more flexible. And along the Erie Canalway Trail, there are plenty of places to camp. You'll find one, at least every 10 miles, if not sooner than that. And one thing that's really special about the Erie Canal is that you can camp at the locks, the canal facilities that raise and lower the boats that make the waterway navigable. And those turn into little kind of parks that you can camp at for free. So that's a really great option when you're traveling along the Erie Canalway Trail. It is primitive, so you got to bring your own water. There will be a porta potty, but in addition to those primitive sites, there are also campgrounds, more traditional style camping. You can also stay with Warm Showers hosts. If you're not familiar with this, it's a reciprocal hospitality platform for touring cyclists. So it's a super niche community, and it's an online platform where people will make themselves available as a host. I'm a host here in Albany for touring cyclists, and they find me on the app and they can ask whether I'm available for them to stay with me. And then I let them crash on my couch, but other people might just open up their yard for camping or share a guest room. So it's a really cool way as a touring cyclist to get to know the locals. And I really enjoy being a host because I get to meet the amazing people that are riding through our state all summer. And then, of course, there are hotels and bed and breakfasts, obviously the most comfortable way to travel, and you don't have to carry all your camping gear with you. So this is a really great way to, travel lighter, be more comfortable. And we do recommend booking ahead. In some of these small communities, there just aren't that many places to stay, so they can book up pretty fast, especially during the peak season. So, you can always risk it, but we do recommend in the smaller places looking and, booking as soon as when you're looking to go. And as far as accommodations go, Parks and Trails New York manages the Bike Friendly New York Business Certification Program. So through this, we are able to provide you with a list and a map of businesses, a range of businesses, but right now I'll focus on accommodations that are ready to welcome you. So that means in terms of lodging, they have an indoor secure place for you to store your bike overnight, and they allow one-night stays, and they're just ready for you to come in, maybe muddy, tired, wet from the rain. They're expecting you, and they're happy to help you out with whatever you need. So definitely, as you're starting to plan out your trip, check out those bike-friendly accommodations. All right, so now you're starting to think about, where you're going to stay. How, of course, are you going to get there and get back to your car? Because it's a linear trail. We don't have any loops yet in New York State, but stay tuned. Trail advocacy is one of our other things. So we're hoping down the line we'll see more of those loop routes. But for now, you need to either get back to your car at the end or shuttle yourself to the start point to end back at your car. So you have some options. You have Amtrak, which through our advocacy and many other voices across the state, we were able to get them to accommodate bicycles. So now you can bring them on board, but slots are limited. You have to book a bike ticket with your seat when you're booking your train ticket. It's $20 to bring your bike with you, a flat rate. But they do fill up fast. So if you are thinking about taking Amtrak as your shuttle service, try and lock that in pretty much when you want to do your trip. We wrote a whole blog post on this. We have a website or a page on our website that's all about the transportation tips. You can navigate to that and learn all about the ins and outs of Amtrak. It's a little confusing. If you want to go a little bit easier, kind of get things taken care of, there are multiple shuttle services that will take you and your bike or your group across the state. I will say that there are no luggage transfer services. That is a question we get sometimes. It's pretty common along long distance trails, but that business does not exist yet on the Empire State Trail. If anyone would like to start it, huge opportunity there. Of course, you can also rent a car for maximum flexibility. There are U-Haul stations if you're in a larger group, really close to the endpoints of the Erie Canal and along the way on other parts of the trail as well. So that kind of gives you that one-way flexibility as well. And then we have a little bit of information on long-term parking on that page too. So you can leave your car and feel pretty secure at the train stations on either end. Or if you're staying at a hotel at the start, you can often ask them if you can leave your car there while you ride. And just a few last tips that I'll share is we recommend a mileage of like 40 to 60 miles a day. This allows you to go a comfortable pace and still leaves you time to explore. You know, it's not the most hardcore riding out there. It's a flat trail for most of it, but you are going to be out riding all day, and this gives you a chance to really stop for lunch, you know, go to a museum, go out for drinks at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what we've found to be a good mileage. In preparing for the trip, you know, like I said, it's not crazy riding, but we do recommend training. Just riding multiple days, those long mileage days in a row can be taxing on the body in a way that, you know, we're not used to. And using the right gear will also help make your trip really successful. This is a big question we get. And you know the surface types now, so you can make your own judgment, but we recommend gravel or hybrid bikes. Sometimes road bikes, the tires are a little bit too skinny for the stone dust sections. So that gravel touring hybrid, that'll really get you the farthest. In terms of when to go, peak season when most things are open is between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And you're guaranteed some better weather. Maybe it'll be a little bit hot, but it won't get too cold at night. But moving into September and October, that can be really great for missing some of the crowds and catching some of that fall foliage, especially in the Champlain and Hudson valleys. But do keep in mind that most things will close after Indigenous Peoples Day. So that kind of mid-October is going to be the cutoff for anything kind of tourism oriented in terms of outdoor stuff like camping and stuff. And then of course, like I said, take your time. There's so much to explore in New York State, so much to see. The communities that the Empire State Trail passes through are well worth your time. So I've given you a lot to think about today, and it can be kind of overwhelming. So if you're not into planning out every detail and maybe want some of it taken care of for you, I'm going to turn it over to Dylan to talk about our fully supported tours.
Great. Thanks, Erica. The Empire State Trail is such a great resource, and we think the best way to experience it is by joining us on one of our 2 tours. Cycle the Erie Canal and cycle the Hudson Valley. So for each of these tours, I'm going to give a quick overview of the route we take, some of the special offerings we have that make them unique. And then Rob, our tour director, is going to go through some of what the cost of registration for each tour includes, what you get by signing up to do the tour with us. So I'm going to start with a true institution. That's Cycle the Erie Canal. This 8-day ride is now in its 27th year. And over that time, we've had thousands of riders join us who have gotten the chance to experience one of the most historically important corridors in the country. The tour runs 400 miles from Buffalo to Albany over 8 days. Most of our riders join us for that full 8-day period, but we do also have a 4-day option available for riders. That 4-day option covers the first 4 days of the ride from Buffalo to Syracuse. I'm going to jump into the itinerary for what we go through, and it'll take me far too long to sort of talk through all of the details of what we'll do on each day. So I'm just going to cover a few of the highlights. We're gathering, we gather on Saturday, July 12th this year. We gather in Buffalo. We always ride Buffalo to Albany. And if you are able to get to Buffalo a little bit early on that day, we have a couple of optional rides that folks are able to sign up for. One that is a guided tour of Buffalo history that goes down into downtown Buffalo. And the other is a longer ride that goes up to Niagara Falls and back. Our core route doesn't take us to Niagara Falls. So if that's something that's on your bucket list and you also want to join us for this ride, arriving a little bit early in Buffalo and joining the Niagara Falls pre-ride is a way to check that off. And there really is no better way to experience Niagara Falls than to arrive at it by bike. On day one, the cost of registration includes a complimentary ticket for a boat tour in Lockport that includes passage through the modern Lockport flight of locks. On that boat tour, you'll be able to see the flight of 5 locks that gave Lockport its name. You know that locks are going to be a key aspect of a place if they named the whole city after it. Moving on to sort of the middle stretch of the tour. On day 3, we actually leave the canal corridor behind. You may have heard that there's a little bit of a distinction between the Erie Canalway Trail being 360 miles and our Cycle the Erie Canal Tour being 400 miles. And that's because we do branch off it a little bit, whether that's getting to the locations that we have our overnight campsites at, or most significantly, because on day 3, we finished the day down in Seneca Falls. Seneca Falls is a gorgeous city. For folks that have seen the It's a Wonderful Life movie, that's the city that the community in that was based off of, is Seneca Falls. And actually the bridge that is, don't think I'm going to give away a spoiler for a movie that's, nearly 100 years old at this point. The bridge that Jimmy Stewart's character jumps off of in that movie to save Clarence the Angel, you can ride over the bridge that was the inspiration for that bridge. And we'll be actually going over that bridge as part of the route this year because we're staying at a new location. So if you've done Cycle the Erie with us in the past and you haven't made it to that bridge, this is the year to join again and experience that. Seneca Falls also is home to the Women's Rights National Historic Park. And that's part of a broader theme in this whole ride, is that each of the days we pass through these sites that highlight, the local aspect of canal history, different parts of this broader story that tell how this unique waterway that was really dug largely by hand, that gave rise to the engineering profession in New York State, how it transformed our whole country, how it led to the rise of New York City as the economic powerhouse we know it as today, how it helped spread a range of ideas and movements across the country, from religious movements that led to that central part of the state being known as the burnt over district, because there was all of these, religious revival movements, to the spread of, women's rights and telling the story of how new ideas were carried along with the goods and the people along the canal. And then moving on, towards the end of the day, one of the other things that's great is just that, as Erica mentioned, there's all these great scenic canal side communities. And by joining our ride, you have this chance to join into them. You can shop at some of the local shops. You can visit local coffee houses. You can explore these ice cream parlors. We often make a joke that you'd think that, riding 400 miles over a week would be like a great way to lose weight, but actually, no, you gain weight because there's so much great food to eat along the way. There's so much great ice cream to try. There's all these local breweries and bars that you stop in at. It just really is a great way to enjoy everything that upstate New York has to offer, all of the unique scenery and the unique culture of that community. And then we finish with our big gathering in Albany. And this is going to be in a new location from where it's been for the last few years. Folks who have joined us, know that we finished actually at the historic site where the Erie Canal originally ended in Albany, but we're going to be moving a little bit back to Quackenbush Square where it had been in years past. It's been completely renovated, and we're excited to have a big festival to celebrate the end of the ride in Albany and celebrate the accomplishments of everybody who's joined us to ride that 400 miles across the state. And as Erica mentioned, 2025 is also a special year because it's the 200th anniversary of the opening of the original Erie Canal, when Governor DeWitt Clinton performed that famous Wedding of the Waters ceremony to celebrate the joining of the Great Lakes with the Hudson River and the Atlantic Ocean by this connected waterway. We've got a bunch of special celebrations planned for this year, including a special halfway celebration in Syracuse, where we're going to mark the 200-mile mark of our ride by having a big party and celebrating, the accomplishments of everybody who's made it that far, and just recognizing that this is the 200th year. This is that special bicentennial of the Erie Canal. So there's more in store for that. With that, though, I'm going to move on to the other of our 2 rides, and this is our newer of our 2 rides, Cycle the Hudson Valley. And this ride takes us on the southern half of the north-south leg of the Empire State Trail. As Erica mentioned, this is the Hudson Valley Greenway leg. Running from the Albany area, we actually start in Troy and finishing down in New York City. Now, we've adjusted the ride a bit this year in response to rider feedback we've gotten in past years, so we've shortened it. We're going to be taking 5 days to ride these 200 miles from Troy to New York City. But we think the history of the Hudson Valley is just as rich as that of the Erie. We think this is the best way to experience. There's numerous historic sites along the way that tell the story of American history, everything from the American Revolution to artistic movements such as, you know, the Hudson River School. Olana State Historic Site is really a critical site in understanding that movement. The lives of the Gilded Age robber barons. There's these massive mansions that are now state historic sites or other historic sites that we pass through along the way that you have an option to go in and visit. Or the story of important abolition and civil rights leaders. New York's newest state park is Sojourner's Truth State Park in Kingston, and the route goes right through that. The route also crosses some of the most scenic viewpoints in the state. From the Rosendale Trestle, which you can see on the right of the slide there, which was the highest span bridge in the country when it was originally built in 1872, to the walkway over the Hudson. It's the longest multi-use trail bridge in the country. It gives stunning views of the river. You know, this is a destination location. People come from around the world to visit the walkway over the Hudson. And our ride takes you right over it. It's included, you know, included as part of the ticket. And you know, we think it just is such a special site, a special way to you know, to enjoy a bike tour. The ride ends in New York City too. I mean, this is also just like a special way to experience, you know, experience New York. Because we finish in New York City on a Saturday, it means that we're able to enjoy a New York Summer Streets program. It closes some major streets such as Broadway to motor vehicles, and then opens them for people walking and bicycling. It really is a great expression of joy in the hot New York summer. We'll also end at the end of the Empire State Trail at the Battery, the southern tip of Manhattan, before we ride across the Brooklyn Bridge, the iconic sort of image of New York City. And we finish at Brooklyn Bridge Park, where you get just incredible views of the lower Manhattan skyline. It really is just a gorgeous place to finish a ride, you know, and just experience all of you know, just the feel of New York City and what makes it special. And because I'm sure, you know, me telling you about it maybe doesn't give it its full press, you know, full example. We're gonna show a quick video of just some of what makes this ride special. So Michaela's gonna cue that up here.
The perfect cycling vacation is more than just riding your bike.
Historic sites, state parks, local communities.
These tours give people a great sampling of regions. I've never done anything like this before, and it's incredible to be doing it along these greenways, rail trails.
What we have here in the Empire State Trail and in the Hudson Valley, just too rare in this world. What's better than riding your bike, eating great food, interacting with great people along the way? So that's an experience we want to make much more common in people's everyday lives.
Great. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our ride director. He's the guy that makes all of this magic happen. That's Rob Panzera. He's going to talk through what each of our rides includes, why we think these are the perfect starting bike tours for everyone, or whether you've taken a bike tour or not. So, Rob?
Thanks, Dylan. Good coverage of the itinerary as well. So what's included beyond an amazing community and that's supported by an astounding group of volunteers that come back year after year because they love it so much. You have mechanical support each day. That's mechanics in camp and when you leave and when you come back, and also along the way, they'll be there to assist you if you have any mechanical issues, along with riders who help with mechanical help. We have a bunch of SAG riders as well that are there, and then folks in cars driving around that support you. So there's not a moment where you're probably not within a quick phone call if you need a pickup, you need an adjustment, you need any kind of help. Luggage transport, I mean, this is a big part of it if you're doing it on your own, which is a great way to do things, but also in this way, you have your luggage transported. You put it on the truck. We have a great team that moves it from the first camp to the next camp. And then when you get there, it's laid out quickly for you to grab. You can grab all your equipment, your tent, and set everything up. Along the way, we have trail resources, daily maps. We have electronic routes that go onto your phone and also onto any kind of cycling computers. We paint on the ground, actually arrows for you to follow. You have the sheets to follow, and you also have a great pre-departure packet, including tips for preparing for the ride. And every time you get to camp too, great daily itinerary sheets that tell you what's happening each day at camp, telling you what's happening in town locally. I think Bobby mentioned the block party in Rome, for example, places that you can go and interact with the community. It's kind of just take the thinking out for you, and you can actually just have fun, enjoy what's happening during the day, and just kind of follow the route along and kind of focus on the things that make the trail great, such as eating ice cream and community. Go to the next slide here. Meals, nice thing too, you have to think about the food. You got 2 daily rest stops every day that are stocked full of food for you. We have, it's called the AM and PM, but it depends on when you get there. There's a first and second rest stop, and these are pretty dialed in over the years. Our great volunteers listen to what people like, and they always make adjustments. On Cycle the Erie Canal, you have 8 breakfasts provided. That's each morning, if you want to do the count, and then 6 provided dinners. On the other couple nights, you go into town, and we have a great shuttle service that gets people into town. You can bike into town if you want, but we have the shuttles available that run throughout the afternoon to check out sites and to go to dinner on those dinner on your own nights. Cycle the Hudson Valley, 5 breakfasts each day, and then 3 provided dinners. Again, there's 2 nights where you're on your own, and we've picked communities that are really welcoming. They want you to get out. They want you to come into the community. They want you to meet people. They want you to support the local restaurants. And it's a good way to eat local, and especially on Hudson Valley as well, known for really great restaurants and cooking along with Cycle the Erie Canal. Entertainment, always fun stuff to do. Music, great historical presentations, and that's just not at camp. Each morning we have a great meeting to kick it off. You get a little bit of history of where you're going to go and what's happening, what you're going to see. But also during the tour, we might have a pop-up one at a certain time at a certain location, a great historic site or bridge or museum, and you can certainly dip into those. And then guided tours. Dylan mentioned in Lockport, for example, but there's other sites along the way. Syracuse has the Great Canal Museum, for example. So we're always thinking of ways to interact with the community, give you guys better access, give you a full understanding of what you're riding through. So it makes it very interactive and fun. And then accommodations, always outdoor camping's available. Usually we have indoor and indoor camping. It's usually a gym or a community room where you can lay out a mat and a sleeping bag. Always shower facilities. You're always gonna have a shower facility, whether it's a great, very fancy truck with sinks, or schools have great showering facilities as well. And then there's an option, and this is something that costs down on if you want to do comfy campers. This is a great service which brings your tent and gear and sets it up for you. So you just have to kind of roll in and you're ready to go with your little tent city. So that's kind of another option we offer as well. And then beyond that, thank you. Next slide. Transportation. So we have shuttles at the beginning and end of tour. So for example, you can get to Albany, you jump on the shuttle, you park, you jump on the shuttle, take you to Buffalo, and you can ride back to your car. At the end, finish line shuttle, you end in Albany. It takes you back to your car in Buffalo. Same thing with Cycle the Hudson Valley. You can get a shuttle out of New York. We just added this year because there was an interest in folks that didn't really have a car or access to a car, and they want to start in New York. So we're going to take them from New York up to Troy. And then, of course, when we finish at Brooklyn Bridge Park, as Dylan mentioned, there'll be a shuttle back to parking in Albany. And then also for SeaTac, we have a 4-day option. As Dylan mentioned, if you're going just from Buffalo to Syracuse, we'll get you back to Buffalo with the shuttle. And this is on top of the shuttles that we have daily at camp, I should mention again. We have the daily shuttles in camp to get you around town to local sites. Also jerseys, I think it's a great way to show community, be a part of the event. These are in the PTNY shop, which I think someone's going to throw into the chat. And we could probably pop up a picture. Thank you. These great jerseys. I think these are a great way to kind of know you're on the tour, you're a part of the tour. It's a memento, and they're also really well designed. So, and if you have further questions, which I think you do, and I see some popping up the Q&A, please ask. Obviously, didn't cover everything, but we want to be a resource for both tours because we think this is really the key way to come see these parts of both trails. So I'll push it back to Dylan right now, I think. Right?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Hopefully you're all inspired now to plan your own trip, or hopefully even better, join us for one of our 2 bike tours. I know, as Rob said, we've seen a lot of the questions come in on the Q&A, and I know we've got some other questions that we've, we get commonly asked that we can share the answers to. So I think Michaela, you're going to facilitate that Q&A, and you know, the team here, myself, Erica, and Rob, you know, we can chime in as needed. If folks do have questions, please put them into that Q&A box. That's you know, how we can get those you know, answered live. If we're not able to get to all of the questions, you know, we will follow up with them afterwards. But yeah, Michaela, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. Thanks, guys. We do have a ton of questions. So I guess we'll start with transportation. We have a few pertaining to those slides. Will Amtrak let you take your bike to Albany, to Montreal, or from Albany or Montreal?
Yeah, I can answer this one. And this is a great question. Unfortunately, right now, there is no bike transport service up to Montreal on the train. It's definitely an advocacy item on our list of priorities. And I believe you can box it and take it to Montreal on the train, but there's no carry-on, walk-on service with the bikes. So that's definitely something that we'd like to see changed. But for now, there's no bike service on Amtrak to Montreal.
Awesome. And do you have any names of shuttle services that you could recommend?
Yes, I'll actually just put a link in an answer or in the chat to this, but basically there are 3 that we're aware of. A point shuttle service, like A point or point A to point B. A point shuttle service is one. Erie Canal bike transport is another, and Classic Adventures. But yeah, I'll share the link to that in the chat so you can find it later, and it'll be in a follow-up email.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there a list or some sort of resource for parking areas that allow you to park overnight?
Yes, also a good question. Right now, we don't have that, but that's really good feedback. Definitely something we'd like to provide. There has been a lot of momentum of collecting more data on the amenities along the Erie Canalway Trail, so we should be able to provide more up-to-date information within the year. I'm not sure about prior to this tourism season, but thank you for the feedback, and
we'll say that in a lot of communities, there are options to park. There's numerous parking lots along the trail. But what we often suggest is if you're interested in parking in a specific community, that you just contact the local police department or, you know, the local village or town office, and, you know, see if they have any suggestions, and also let them know that you're planning to leave your car in a specific location, you know, because then they can know that it's not abandoned. They can keep an eye on it for you. You know, that's often what we suggest. But, you know, in Buffalo, in Albany, in Rochester, and Syracuse, there's, you know, a ton of parking. There's a lot of options, and a lot of options that do allow for, you know, overnight stays.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and one last thing I'll add, the Cycling the Erie Canal Facebook group often has people offering, you know, if you want to park in my driveway for a few days like that people are offering that. So it could be something to ask there too.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving into our tours, how many riders can we support on each of the tours?
Yeah, that's a great question. Cycle the Erie Canal supports 650 riders in addition to the 100 volunteers. Cycle the Hudson Valley is a little bit smaller. I believe it's 250 riders. And again, about 100 volunteers. So yeah.
That's correct.
So for riders that are less sure about their abilities, if they think they can keep up with the mileage one day, but then throughout the tour can no longer, what are their options?
So we do have SAG support that provides that support to riders, and Rob, I'll let you chime in here in a second. But you know, we encourage that folks train. You know, the expectation is that the riders are able to make it each day, that, you know, that you are fully prepared. You know, but we do have support if, you know, if you're not able to make it one day, we're not going to leave you behind. We make sure everybody makes it safely to camp on any given day. But Rob, do you want to sort of?
I think you covered it. Yeah, no, the expectation is that we hope you'll train up for it, but obviously if there's an issue, we have ample vehicles, either going from one camp to the next if you can't ride the day, and trucks, or on the route if you get part way. We could certainly pick you up. That's not a problem.
And Bobby in here said, don't forget about the welcoming block party in Rome, which is always a huge hit.
Yes, it is. It's one of those great ways that the community embraces the tour. That's one of the special things about Cycle the Erie Canal, and that we're starting to see on Cycle the Hudson Valley, is just the community really embraces it when our riders come through. They really recognize the value that the riders bring to their community, the impact of that tourism. And they want to encourage the riders to come in and experience what makes their community special. Last year, a group of volunteers really spearheaded this effort to create this great block party in Rome, which is the community that hosts us on our fifth night. And it was a great party. It was a wonderful time. It really was just a great experience. So thank you to Bobby and all the folks with the Rome Waterways and Trails Advisory Group that helped, organize that, and looking forward to it again this year.
Awesome. And we have a few questions regarding weather for SeaTech. Is it rainy? Are there a lot of mosquitoes? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the weather will vary from year to year. Generally, rain hasn't been too much of an issue. It's hot though. It is July, so we encourage folks to be ready for riding in the heat. And temperatures can get into the 80s or upper 80s, or hopefully it doesn't get into the 90s too much. But it has been hot the last couple of years. By that time of year, mosquitoes generally are pretty not much of an issue. That's more of a spring thing that we found. But yeah, I mean, I think the heat has been the issue. We, of course, make accommodation for if there is going to be rain, making sure that folks are safe if there are, severe issues. But if it's a rainy day, the expectation is that, you ride through it and you make it there safely. So we encourage folks to pack some sort of a rain gear or wet weather gear just to have with them along the ride.
Mhm.
I'll also add that it does get chilly at night. I found, 50s, 60s. So packing a sweater, being prepared for that range of climate options is good.
I guess it depends on your internal temperature, because I've never been chilly at night on that ride.
Oh,
Is wind a factor at all?
Not too much of a factor. That's largely the reason why we encourage folks to ride from Buffalo to Albany rather than the opposite, is generally the prevailing winds are at your back, going from Buffalo to Albany. But yeah, it's not too much of a factor.
Awesome. And we have Christopher in the Q&A. So it's not a question, just wanted to recommend the Erie Canal trip. Wife and I did the 4-day tour 2 days ago. Everything was excellent, and they hope to do the full tour. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Hopefully you join us again. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are there meal choices for those with dietary restrictions on the tour?
Absolutely. Yeah. So part of the registration answering, and then we'll follow up, is finding out if there's dietary restrictions. And then along the way, we work with individual caterers. No one caterer that follows us, obviously. But we work with them, and we have a great volunteer that really spearheads this. So yes, the answer is a positive yes to that.
Awesome. And what about riders that choose not to stay at our tent cities? Are they making their own accommodation planning?
Yeah, they make their own arrangements with hotels and B&Bs in the communities. We've had some riders that opt to do that for some of the days, but not all. Some riders that do it for all of the days. When we we have a list of accommodations that I believe is available on our website, or if not, it will be soon. That shares what some of the options are in those communities. The big thing that I'll mention is that we don't have a shuttle service to bring you from camp to your accommodation. So your luggage will be transported to wherever our campsite is that night, and you can either then bring it yourself to where you're staying that night, or just take what you need from your luggage and bring it to where you're staying. And then again in the morning you have to come back, put your luggage on the truck, and then you ride from there.
Awesome, thank you. How well is the trail marked? What's that look like?
Erica, do you?
yeah, I can answer that. It's well marked with signage. We do recommend, checking the websites, the interactive maps for the fully up-to-date routing information. But generally, you can follow it without additional help. I will say it's really great joining us for the tours because then you have the on-the-ground paint markings as well. And if you go after our tours later in the summer, you'll often see them on the ground, usually pink arrows. But do keep in mind that those will sometimes direct our tour riders to the campsites or other rest stops that are off the main route. So if you're using those on your own tour, be careful.
On the tours, do people use e-bikes or adaptive cycles?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Rob, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as e-bikes are getting more and more used, we've gotten a lot smarter about transporting them, also charging them. We have a great charging system that we keep building out each year. So, yeah, and then any type bicycle, if you have something that's a bit longer, a bit wider, I've had people actually email me already, and we just make sure we accommodate it in terms of shuttling it here and there. So, yep.
And each of the nights in our camp, there is a charging site. So once you arrive in camp, you can just bring your battery to that charging site, let it charge. We typically don't run it all night because the generators to run those charging sites, we want to make sure we're not keeping people up when we're trying to sleep. But, they're running enough so that your e-bike can be fully charged, can be entirely ready to go the next day.
Awesome. And can those charging stations be used for phones and other items?
Not those. We have separate charging stations for phones that make sure your phones are all set.
Yeah, you got to see this great setup we have. I mean, we can charge anything at this point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just going through the chat here, looking for some questions. Okay, are there any apps or resources you would recommend, training resources for people who are interested?
We have a guide for folks who are interested in joining our tours. Just some suggestions for how to plan. That is in the rider handbook, which will be published on our website soon. But I think it's the one that's on there now is from last year, and I think that the training information will be largely the same. Erica, do you have any suggestions for sort of other options?
Yeah, I think that was going to be the recommendation I had, and really just riding multiple days in a row is the best advice I can give, because that's usually what gets people is you've maybe done one long day ride, but then you have to do it again.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add on that is the time in the shuttle or the time in the saddle, the time riding the bike is often more important than the distance. Folks generally aren't. It's not that they have too far to ride. It's just that sitting on a bike seat for 5 or 6 hours is something you need to be, have your body ready for. So that would be our suggestion, is try to spend time in the saddle, just get as used to riding, but also go visit your local bike shop. Go visit your local bike shop sort of now at the beginning of the year and get a tune up. Make sure that your seat is fitted to you. Make sure your bike is fitted to you. These are all things that, you can ride it without having done that, but it'll just make your experience that much better.
Switching gears, which of the two rides would be more accessible for an adaptive athlete?
That's a good question. I would say probably the Erie tour. It tends to be flatter. There's less of it is on road. It's just more well established. There are a few points on either of the routes that are a little bit challenging to navigate with adaptive equipment. I think just some pinch points. We're continually working with the trail managers to try to address those. There's of course the balance between making sure that the trail is ADA accessible and making sure that you're effectively keeping vehicles off the trail. But I would say the Erie is probably the more easily accessible ride for adaptive athletes.
And on the tour, what is the schedule like? Does everyone leave camp at the same time? Do they ride in groups? What's that dynamic?
Yeah, it's not a race. It's not a thing where you're trying to beat. I mean, the people leave the camp sort of, it's sort of a flow, I'll say. It's sort of spread out over sort of an hour or two in the morning. We have 2 morning briefings each morning at 6:30 and 7. that, is a chance to get some information about the ride that day. They're while you're eating breakfast, they're available. Everybody, we sort of ask that everybody is out of camp by, I think, 8 o'clock so that we can get it all packed up and get to the next site and start to set up the next camp. But it's definitely not like everybody's riding in a group. Sort of ride at your own pace, go at your own speed. Sometimes people ride in a group if they've come with a group or they've made friends along the way. Sometimes people ride by themselves. Sometimes they do both. They'll do it by themselves for a bit, then with a group for a bit. It's amazing that for a ride with 650 and 700 people, there's times when you can be on the trail and not see anybody, in front of you or behind you. That tends to be later in the day as everybody gets spread out, but it really is sort of a choose your own adventure kind of thing. As long as you get to camp by the time the route closes, which is I think 5 o'clock, do it at your own pace.
Moving to the camping sites, for Cycle the Hudson Valley, are there any camping sites that are inside?
Yes, there's I'll flip it and say there's 2 that are not inside. So in New Paltz, we're at the Ulster County Fairgrounds, and there's not indoor camping there, but it's a great, beautiful facility with great pavilion. And then also Carmel is similar. It's a nice, really nice facility, but there's no indoor camping. But other places we do, and those are all 3 of them are in gymnasiums. So nice, air conditioned with a mat gymnasiums.
Great. And how are bikes secured overnight?
So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you go.
It's sort of, we encourage you to bring your lock and lock it up. A lot of times the places we stay are, sort of outside of town, whether it's at a school or at a county park or a town park or something that, security isn't a huge issue, but we have had issues in the past. So we do encourage that you bring a bike and you lock it up, whether it's to, a nearby fence or to another bike or whatever. Bike theft tends to be a crime of opportunity. So as long as your bike isn't sort of sitting right at the entrance, unlocked, easy to take, generally it's not a huge worry. But yeah, we encourage you to bring a lock and make sure you lock it up to something or to other bikes.
We have a question here. It seems like the routes through Syracuse and New York City are on busy streets. Is that true?
So, no. I mean, there's a little bit of that for each of them, but for Syracuse, as part of the investments made in the trail, as part of the Empire State Trail project, it took most of the route off-road. There's an on-road bike lane that's for a stretch of it, but it's on kind of a quieter side street than, it's not on the main street. And then for a significant stretch of the trail through Syracuse, it's on this new Erie Canal or Erie Boulevard path that has actually this unique approach that built a path down, sort of the middle of the median of Erie Boulevard in Syracuse. So that's largely off-road now. There is some on-road riding to get to the campsite and back, but when you're riding in a group this size, it tends to be safer. And we haven't had any issues with, the safety of on-road riding. For New York City, again, there's only one on-road stretch that is to get from Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx over to the Hudson River Greenway in Manhattan. Only maybe half a mile or so, maybe a little more. Again, that's the route of the Empire State Trail. We're continuing to work on trying to find ways to improve that. I know there's an ongoing planning process that New York City is undertaking to construct the Harlem River Greenway in the Bronx that we hope will one day become the new route of the Empire State Trail and take even more of it off-road. But there is a little bit of on-road there, but it's generally safe.
Awesome. And we have another trail question. Last year, an on-trail climb was added in Schenectady. Does this year's route include that climb?
So the main route of the Empire State Trail does include a little bit of a climb in and around Schenectady. It's an option that folks will have, whether it's taking that sort of main route that does include that climb, or if it'll be some on-road, some city streets to kind of cut through Schenectady and get over there. There's some optional sort of experiences that folks can do. I know the local cycle advocacy organization in Schenectady has tried to organize some tours. And so I think that it's something, that there'll be an option for folks. More generally, I can say about the routes is that we don't finalize the routes until generally about a couple of weeks ahead of the tours, as we want to make sure that they're fully reflective of on the ground conditions. If there's closures that arise, if there's road work that we don't know about, it's usually about a week or two ahead of the tours that we, 100% finalize what the route will be and post that. But yeah, that I know that I grew up in Schenectady, so I know that climb really well, and that can be a little bit of a climb if you're not expecting it, but there is an option to avoid that climb.
Okay, and we do have a few questions regarding bike transportation that we can get through quickly. What are bike shipping options, and how do people transport their bikes if they're taking the shuttle?
So I can answer the second one a little bit more easily. If you're taking the shuttle, we also have a bike transport that goes along with it. It's a box truck that we load the bikes into. They're secured, so they're not, bumping against each other. If you have an e-bike, we do require that you take your battery off the bike and transport it in the air-conditioned bus. That's a safety measure that we require. But yeah, that is a piece of the shuttle. It's not just a shuttle ticket, but it's a shuttle and bike transport ticket, and the trucks just follow the shuttles to wherever they're going, if it's to the camp at the beginning or to the parking lot at the end. For bike shipping, we do partner with some services to offer bike shipping. I don't have those memorized off the top of my head, but the details for that are on the website, and we'll send that information around as part of the follow-up.
Awesome, thank you. And we do have some unanswered questions in the chat that I don't think we'll have the time to get to. But if you email us, get in touch, we can answer those questions. We'll also be sending out a post-webinar email with a bunch of links that we've mentioned in here, as well as a special promo code for all of our amazing webinar attendees.
Yeah, we're excited. Thank you all for joining us. It's been wonderful. We hope you found it very informative, and we're really excited about Cycle the Erie Canal and Cycle the Hudson Valley this year. We hope you are as well. And as an additional enticement to get you to join us, this follow-up email that Michaela just mentioned is going to include a special discount code for 15% off of our bike tours. So keep an eye out for that. That'll have some links that we mentioned as well, but keep an eye out for that discount code. So thank you all for joining us. Get in touch, ask us those questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, and we'll see you on the trail. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.